Alrighty. Let me see if OBS is working. The mic is coming up. The video is on. Wow. It's like a magic. Alrighty. 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 Let me do my casual, showing off my stream in various locations. Self-promos here and there and everywhere. Okay, pull that up. Now, what else do I need to pull up? Nope, not that one. It's so annoying only having one monitor. Let me tell you. The terrible life that I live where I only have the one monitor. In that video, your head is completely shaved. Now you looking like Julio Iglesias. Julio Iglesias, oh no. Oh no. I mean, do I look old? I've never not known Julio Iglesias to be old. I'll tell you what, I'll totally be down for the hair. The hair is cool, but oh no. From what I'm hearing is, all I'm hearing is that I'm old. Ugh. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. He was a pimp. Yeah. Alrighty. Very old. I don't want to be old. I'm young at heart. I'm young and I'm not young in body, but I'm young in spirit. I'll send you one of my canes. Oh no. Oh, I can feel my aching knees and waist. Ugh. My hips. I'm getting too old for this tabletop role-playing game. It's too hard to sit down these days. Ugh. Get this whole getting old thing for the birds, ain't it? Let me tell you. Back in my day, we didn't get old. Okay. I don't want to get old. Please don't let me get old. My campaign starts in an hour. Heck yeah. You sound like my history teacher watching your videos as guides. Heck yeah, Billy. Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I've ran that a few times, and Next time I run that, I'm actually going to be running it using a different game system besides 5e. So I'll be very interested to see how the game shakes up because of that. You are becoming a Gurgnard. Oh, no. No. Never too old to game. Hey, NFA, thanks for all the campaign guides. We're just about to hit the Amber Temple. What do you do for the game and the GM community is invaluable. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Ronan, I try my darndest, and let me tell you, like, I was very happy making all these campaign module guides, and I don't know if you saw on my channel, but I was actually going to start 3 more. I was going to start one on, I was going to start one on, oh my gosh, I'm literally staring at them right now. I was going to start one on Baldur's Gate, on Tales from the Yawning Portal, and from, what do you call that? Oh my gosh, why am I like, I'm so blanking right now. In Out of the Abyss. I was going to do 3 of those campaign guides, but this whole, OGL fiasco has been leaving a sour taste in my mouth for D&D, specifically Wizards of the Coast D&D. So I've kind of taken my foot off the gas on making those module guides. But let me tell y'all something. I get so many people telling me that just making the simple guides, just going over these scenarios and situations, talking about them, explaining them, ways we can improve them, ways we can change them. I get so many people telling me how awesome that is. And not just, everyday people just saying, oh yeah, I love these guides, but I also get people that are blind, ADD, ADHD, etc., etc. And it's so great hearing people say like, oh, these are invaluable, these are awesome, because that tells me Wizards of the Coast was not thinking about that, right? They just wrote some words on the page and just expected people to decipher them, but that's not how the real world works, right? So I'm pretty happy. That I got to help people out with that. And mind you, like, it takes me a while to make those guides, and I do not make a profit off them. I can tell you that right now. In regards of not just the profit, in regards of like making money off them, because let's be honest, YouTube isn't paying the bills. But it just, like, for me specifically, it's just like looking at all my YouTuber peers, they make the fun, clickbaity, you'll never believe what this build can do, versus, campaign guide number 37. Which of those two is going to get more views? We obviously know, right? So, obviously from trying to be successful on YouTube, they're just not the way to go. But I still like doing them because I like to help people, right? And, it's cool. But I was doing that, and then now, of course, with this whole OGL nonsense, the whole Wizards of the Coast, saying that they can remove your content if they don't like your content kind of thing, like, I was really, really putting a damper on my creative spirits here. And mind you, creative spirits in regards to Dungeons & Dragons 5e, or I guess 1D&D as well. I'm still making content on the side. I'm still writing adventures, and I'm still doing whatever, but not necessarily just for D&D, because right now I'm currently not making anything for 5e D&D. I am making content for just either generic role-playing game systems or OSR, and I've started to think about maybe I should start to actually sit down and maybe make my own tabletop role-playing game. That very well may be in the works. Much love from the group. We love you. I watch all your videos for fun. Well, you showed up to the wrong place. The TOA vids are really good. Thank you. TOA, TAA is my pride and joy, right? TOA is straight up my straight up favoritist 5e adventure module, because it incorporates everything that I love about adventures. You got awesome role play with a whole bunch of great people found in the place. You've got awesome places to explore, and a bunch of awesome combats to have. It's got the 3 pillars of D&D that I love so much. I've ran it 4 times now, and the next time I run it, I'm going to be running it using a different game system, once again. And that'll be really interesting to see how the game shapes up based off of running it off of essentially what is an earlier version of D&D. I'm going to be running Tomb of Annihilation using old school essentials, which is essentially first edition D&D. So that'll be really, really fun to see because TOA, of all the 5e adventure modules, is very much so written with that old school theme in mind. But the funny thing is even though it's written with that theme in mind, 5e natively has a super duper high fantasy and epic feel to it. And so sometimes those things don't mesh well. The perfect example being, of course, in a giant hex crawl. Hex crawls are irrelevant in vanilla 5e rules because if you take damage on one day of the encounter, then it doesn't matter how much damage you take because you just sleep it off and you get your health back no problem. And thus there is no reason to have random encounters in a jungle when there is no persistence, lingering anything. Like there is no consequence to anything at all. But in old school D&D, that is not the case. Your health only comes back at you only get 1 health per day. You'll only get your tiny amount of resources. Also, very importantly, is casters do not have cantrips in old school D&D, so magic is limited. So I'll be very interested to see how Tomb of Annihilation holds up when running it with the old school vibe and theme. I agree very much. Heck yeah. Yeah, so I just, today is my last day in regards of having my tooth. I'm getting a tooth pulled tomorrow, and I suspect that I will not be able to record videos for at least a day or two after my tooth is pulled, I suspect. So, I wanted to hop on, say hi to everybody. Wanted to talk about the future of our tabletop role-playing games and D&D and all that fun jazz. And I also wanted to get this out before I lose the ability to talk for a day or two. Because from what I've been told, getting your tooth pulled kind of sucks. From what I've been told. Oh boy. Ouch, better you than me. You know what? Fair. And it's funny because I'm getting a tooth replaced. But the thing is you can't simply just pull out a tooth and immediately put in the new tooth. You have to wait months for the basically the place to heal to an appropriate area where you can put in the new tooth. So I'm gonna be looking toothless for a while. Hello there. Hello, Overboard. But mind you, I'm not going to look toothless because my tooth that's missing is going to be in the back. So unless I open up my mouth and show you, you would never see it. It's not one of my front-facing teeth, so I'm good. I'll be good. Oh me, oh my, oh goodness gracious, what a wonderful life. Okay, so with that, yeah, let's look at some things here that I've got going on. Alrighty. Once again, it just really sucks only having the one monitor to have to move things around. Listening to you talk in 2 different videos is messing with my emotions. The thing to consider is in all my videos, I'm essentially talking at you, but right now I'm talking to you. I kind of want when I make those videos, I kind of want that dialogue where I am just talking to you. But obviously, it's just different because I'm not, answering your questions. I'm just stating my own personal, beliefs and, when it comes to this scenario, is this good? I personally don't think so, kind of thing. Versus, If you ask me specifically, then I can be like, oh, well, here's something that I would do kind of thing, you know? Oh, boy. Oh, me, oh, my. So, in the future, and post my tooth being pulled out, I was planning on running a bunch of games for the public. My plan was to start on January 30th. I want to start running a bunch of public games where they're basically carnival games. So half of the time it'll be using Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and the other half of the time I'll be playing Carnival of the Damned. So when that is going on, I just wanted to like I'm gonna be making like a public post about it, and then I'll be running it through my Discord. And I was planning on recording the games and making like maybe like a highlight reel of some of like the awesome moments from them, because I suspect there might be some awesome times there. But I'll be making a post about that. Oh. I need to, I mean, it's already too late. I'm going to have to figure out tomorrow, but like, I haven't talked to anyone about like how long does it normally take for like a tooth being pulled to like really like not affect you as much. Dark Sun, best one ever. I would have to legit be like, I'd have to look down at every single, what do you call those things? A setting to determine which one's the best one, in my personal opinion. I like Dark Sun. Dark Sun really hits the vibe that I like about D&D in regards of it's magic is scary. I really like that magic is scary in the world of Dark Sun, because I think magic should be scary. I think magic should be magical, and I don't think magic should be science, because in more modern fantasy games, magic is science. You always know what it's going to do. You always know exactly how to handle it. Nothing bad ever happens that you don't want it to happen, kind of thing. Like, magic is like a guaranteed thing. Versus, I like when magic is like not a guaranteed thing. I like when magic is like, oh man, I cast a spell and like maybe some adverse effect will go off, and maybe like, when I cast it, then it'll like ruin the world, kind of thing. Like, I dig that. I really, really do. But in regards to the best setting ever, I'd have to look at all of the D&D settings. Off the top of my head, I would have to, that's a tough one. Which D&D starter set is best story-wise, Lost Mines or Dragons of Stormwreck? I personally believe that it's Lost Mines. Now, I'll actually copy this down here. So, Comfy, in regards of why I believe it is Lost Mines, is because the story is in the player's hands. So, Stormwreck is part of the latest set of 5e adventures where the players have basically no impact on the world. And the reason for that is because when you look at how things are written, they're either written as adventures or they're written as stories. Adventures are the player stories. Stories are, just something that the players get to observe. Stormwreck Isle, or Dragons of Stormwreck, is essentially your players show up and they get to see these things happen, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about what's going on. Versus Lost Mines. Lost Mines is truly like, okay, players, you're here now. What do you do? And the outcome of everything that goes on is going to be from your players' actions. Your players will have no question in their mind that they were the movers and shakers of the world. They were the ones that got things done. They pushed forward. They went to that location on their own. They, drove the bandits off. They did this. They did that. Versus Dragons of Stormwreck is very much so part of once again, part of that newer line of adventures where, hey, players, you are going here. You are going to do that. So, me personally, I would say Lost Mines because it's the player's story, not the book's. And that's what I've got to say on the matter. Everything is scary in the world of Dark Sun. Pretty sure the sheep are challenge rating 5. Better watch out for those sheep. they can eat you alive. Yeah, you know, I kind of want to look at all the. I'm actually gonna do that right now. All D&D campaign settings. Actually, I'll pull this up for the stream here. All D&D campaign settings. Alrighty, so we have Blackmoor, Greyhawk, Mystara, Ravenloft, Pelennor, Dragonlance, Conan, Lankmar, Karator, Red Sonja, Forgotten Realms, Spelljammer, Hollowworld, Darksun, Alkadim, Thunder Rift, Birthright, Council Worms, Planescape, Redsteel, Arcane Age, Savage Coast, Jakondor, Rokugan, Dragonfist, Mahaspara, Ghostwalk, Eberron, Ravnica, Exandria, Theros. Man, that's a lot of them, huh? Oh, this thing couldn't even see it. Oh my gosh, I hate only having the one monitor. It's so bad for business. Here we go. I changed my name, but you actually DM'd for me once with Smart Donkey. I was Dan. Played a few other games, but you were a great DM. D for Dan, huh? Welcome back. D for Dan. How's it going? I distinctly remember running for you, and I distinctly remember you from all the other things that we did. How's it going? Been a while. Been a hot minute. So, in regards of, man, I'll tell you what, I will definitely put Dark Sun in the top 3, just from, like, looking at these. So to start off with my top 5, I would go, just going down the list here, I would go Greyhawk, Ravenloft, Dark Sun, oh man, what else do I put in there? That's a tough one. Man, do I put Dragonlance in the top 5? Yeah, I put Dragonlance in the top 5. Dragonlance is kind of cool. I have not personally touched Blackmoor, but I would like to. I would actually genuinely like to sit down and explore the very first world of D&D. I've not gotten Blackmoor to the table. And Mystara is also very classic. It's funny. I haven't touched Lankmar through D&D, but I've touched Lankmar through Dungeon Crawl Classics. Yeah, so many to choose from. So many. How do we go about hiring you to DM? Just contact me. Just contact me. I am actually a semi-professional DM. I do DM. I do pro DMing every once in a while. I haven't done it. I'm not doing it right this second, but I'm more than willing to do so. And I will be running some public games in the future, so you can check those out. You can boil them down to the ones that got support, in which case you're looking at 10 for when did they add Nintir, Vale, and 4th. So the thing I don't know is, like, I don't know how they actually, like Like, because a perfect example is like people love Dark Sun, but Dark Sun didn't get as much support as like people think, right? Like Dark Sun did not sell the most of anything. Ravenloft got a ton though. Ravenloft got a bejesus ton. Ravenloft got amazing support, and I like the Ravenloft setting as well. So Lankmar is cool. Fatford and the Grey Mouse is required fantasy reading. That classic Appendix N. Half these settings are just microcosms of another setting. True. Do you pro DM through a service or just using your platform? I've done both. Actually, that's not true. I've only ever done pro DMing just through myself. Like people just like not through any sort of like start playing website or anything or Roll20 online or whatever. It's always just been through me. It just but I'd be willing to branch out. Like all the different Forgotten Realms ones or Red Steel and Hollow World being in Mystara. Is Forgotten Realms part of Mystara? Actually, I don't know. I don't know the topography of Mystara. Mystara takes Blackmoor, Red Steel, and Thunder Rift and Hollow World as subsettings. Okay. I'd have to do more research on them. I haven't spoiler alert, those were before my time because I'm relatively younger, and two, I've only just gotten into tabletop role playing in the past like 6 years or whatever. So yeah, I would genuinely like to look back at the classics of Blackmoor and Mystara. You know, I think there's definitely something there worthwhile looking at. Oh boy. Oh, goodness gracious sakes alive. So, let's see here. Yeah, so, I mean, what are y'all up to? What are y'all up to? What are y'all up to in regards of your future consumption of D&D? I want to know. I'm genuinely curious, because I did put out a poll, and mind you, a lot of people on that poll said that they didn't want to purchase Wizards of the Coast content anymore. But, maybe situations changed. Like, yeah, I put out a poll, and 1.2k people voted on it, saying that they wouldn't want to buy Wizards of the Coast products anymore. So, I mean, if that's true, right there, that's 700, I mean, that's like 750, 780 people saying that they'll never buy Wizards of the Coast products anymore. That's a lot of people. Obligatory, what date can we expect videos of you running Tomb of Annihilation? So in the future, I'm going to be, I don't know if I'm going to be live streaming them, but I will be recording videos of me running games. And one of those is going to be running Tomb of Annihilation using the old school D&D, old school essentials. So it'll be really, really cool to be like, all right, gang, you know how normally in 5e you get that long rest? Well, not here. You know how in 5e normally you get cantrips? Not here, So it'll be really cool to really start that up. No, I've been mostly OSR for a few years now, looking and trying Classic Traveler for the retro sci-fi vibes. Heck yeah. Fun fact, Classic Traveler, Traveler First Edition, you could die during character creation. Pretty funny. Do you like using miniatures when you play, or are you roleplay more over grid-style combat? It's really, for me personally, I prefer Theater of the Mind, because Theater of the Mind, I can hand-wave things so easily. But I do, in fact, run for a bunch of people who, absolutely need a grid. So for them, I'll absolutely, run, with tactical combat. But me personally, I prefer Theater of the Mind because then you can just, go, quick. I think the most important thing is a VTT that accepts data dumps from a gaming system. The plugin Roll20 is amazing. The interconnect system should be standardized. True. Do I prefer Basic Expert over BECME? I'd probably say Basic Expert, BX, because, I just want to keep things simple. I want to keep things nice and neat. I don't want to have to look at a chart when I roll for an attack. Wizards of the Coast is like YouTube. They'll keep mistreating the creators and being generally lousy, but people will stick with the brand. Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about YouTube, though, Benjamin, is obviously they are a lot of times very bad toward their content creators. But something to consider is people make a ton of money through YouTube, not from YouTube, right? Like some of the top, many content creators, they don't make money from YouTube, but they make money from, the advertisements of their sponsorships, or they get gigs because their videos perform well, or, they make friends and connections because their videos get sent out. So YouTube is, sometimes not the greatest, but it's not quite the same as in I'm trying to think, because in the regards of Wizards of the Coast, if I made third-party content before, then yeah, I could absolutely get more gigs through that. But now with this whole OGL situation, I think that might put a little damper on some things. I still love D&D, but I'll probably stick to the third-party stuff. Also, your Discord is getting more interesting than usual tonight. Oh no, oh no. I haven't looked because I've been streaming, but I'll have to check that out in a moment. I'm learning Pathfinder 2 now. I'm really intrigued with the 3-action economy. If I enjoy the Pathfinder 2 rule set, I'll probably just convert my 5e stuff to Pathfinder 2. What I'll tell you, DDD, is there are so much Pathfinder 2 content out already that you may not even need to convert stuff. You know what I'm saying? There is so much content out for Pathfinder 2. Because one, Paizo themselves has a huge, steady, chain of content being made for it. But two, also the community makes a bunch of content for it as well. And that's in regards of Adventure Pass. That's in regards of, player, races and classes. Not races, but ancestries, things of that nature, right? So there's plenty of content for you to consume with Pathfinder 2. And you can actually check, they actually have their schedule listed in regards of what is coming out from Paizo, and it's actually pretty cool. Let me take a look here if I can see if I can find it. Pathfinder 2e release schedule. Yeah, here we go. So they have this upcoming release schedule of let's take a look here. Ancestry Guide coming out on the 25th. They have let's see. Pathfinder Society Scenario, Battle for the Stars Fate coming out on the 25th. Treasure Vault coming out on the February 22nd. And the list goes on. And they schedule they schedule months in advance. You can see here that they've got things listed out till August 30th, which is pretty cool. They, I really like their transparency in regards to their release schedule. That's really solid. I think most tabletop role-playing game companies should have something like this, where they say, hey, we've got this release schedule. Here's what's coming up. You can find out all about it. We'll tell you exactly what it is. Is it an adventure? Is it a little bundle for players? Is it a little this, a little that? I like that. It's real nice. Is there a TOA for Pathfinder? I know for a fact that there's a jungle adventure for Pathfinder. I haven't looked at it personally, though. I was kind of surprised to see how rich the content and community is. Honestly, wish I had started 2E earlier. Thanks, Wizards. You know, sometimes Wizards are their own worst enemy. Soleimani Zodani or Villanai? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. If you could only choose one edition of D&D to play forever, what would you pick? I would genuinely pick first edition. And the reason for that is because the incredible amount of flexibility and modularity to it versus I feel like as editions go on, the system gets more complex and more rules get put on top of each other, and thus the more rules that are on top of each other, the harder it is to take away some of those blocks. 444 coming from DDD, early Tooth Fairy visit, best of luck. Thank you so very much. Thank you. That means the world to me. I'm getting put under. I have only ever been put under once before, and so here's hoping time number 2 comes out okay. But DDD, thank you so very much. That goes a long way, let me tell you. That goes an incredibly long way. That means I don't get to starve. Oh boy. Speaking of starving, I actually don't know how I don't know what I'm supposed to be eating after I get my tooth taken out. Drama aside, what would be your dream adventure module release to kick off 1D&D's launch? So my personal idea for 1D&D's launch is either a desert adventure or Neverwinter. One of those two. I think Neverwinter could be great because there's a lot of things to do in the city, around the city, and it's just got a great staple name. Versus, you know, if you look at Baldur's Gate Descend to Avernus, I feel like they just squandered the whole Baldur's Gate portion of it because, like, they could have just had an adventure in and around Baldur's Gate versus having half the book be Baldur's Gate, half not being in Baldur's Gate. So I think that they should just, like, stick to that. So for Neverwinter, just fun, classic city-going adventure. And then for the desert adventure, there's so many great stories to be told in a desert in regards of going up against the elements, about new, you know, factions dominating the desert. It's about the weird, magical, you know, whatevers. And also in D&D, there's a desert that's filled with, like, weird magic and, you know, the lost Netherese cities and all that stuff. So, fantastic stuff. That would be my go-to. What inspiration you guys consuming at the moment? Been reading Larry Niven's Ringworld, great sci-fi story. My personal inspiration I'm consuming right now is just other people's content. I've been watching some other YouTubers' content in regards of like I'm watching an actual live play from a good old oh my gosh, 3D6 down the line. Let me see if I can find those guys and link them to you. So I've been really enjoying watching them, and you know, not only the DMing style but also like the world and all that. I really dig it. I totally get it. NFA, is Jarlaxle your personal favorite antagonist? I would say he's my favorite antagonist. Not villain though. He's not my favorite villain, but Jarlaxle is certainly my favorite antagonist. He's definitely suave, sophisticated. It makes sense that he doesn't kill the party. That's honestly the biggest issue when it comes to adversaries in D&D is if they are these big, large, and in charge people, why wouldn't they just kill the PCs? You know, you always have that issue of like, okay, the villain wants to kill the PCs. You know, so having an adversary that's like, you know, ooh, you know, like, you know, I can use the PCs to my advantage. I can have them go in front of me and set off the traps. I can have them find a thing and I can steal from them kind of thing. Like, I like that a lot. No straws are really hot foods. I had a couple wisdom teeth pulled last year. Oof. See, I had my wisdom teeth pulled when I was like 17 or 18, and it's been so long that I don't remember anything about it. Just don't chew the inside of your cheek or tongue after the surgery. Oof. My dad introduced me to D&D when 5e released. He's an OG and used the desert setting Al-Qadim, Zakara for the adventure Red Hand of Doom. I would love to see something like this in one D&D. Red Hand of Doom, that's a classic right there. Classic adventure. I haven't personally touched it, but I've looked at it, and I watched a little thing about, I've watched several people about it. You know, it's pretty cool. And if they put a searcher in, they will keep that will help keep from getting a dry socket. Oh boy. 3D6 down the line had a great Domo campaign going. Yeah, they had, and sadly they put a stop on it, and now they're doing an Ardent Vul campaign, and I'm digging their Ardent Vul campaign so far. It's very just classic Mega Dungeon play. Which, speaking of, I am going to be running Mega Dungeon play on my channel as well. So stay tuned for that. Using my own personal made Mega Dungeon, mind you. Villain. I am at the point need to pick is why I'm asking. Oh, absolutely. Jarlaxle's. Well, what I personally recommend in regards of Waterdeep Dragon Heist is to incorporate 2 villains at the same time. I think there's a lot more fun dynamics you can have with that versus just having the one. What are some of your pet peeves as a DM? Oh, this is a very good question, Cloudy. That is one of the go-tos. So, I'll do 3. Going by the rule of 3. Not paying attention to not understanding rules after X time. And 3, what's a good one there? Spotlight hogger. So ultimately, number 1, not paying attention. Like, if I sit there and I give you the full details and ramifications of, like, okay, as you walk into the room, you see that there is the painting on the wall, and also there's a hole on that side of the wall, and so and so. And if I go through all of that, and then I have players be like, hey, can you describe the room again? I'm like, oh my god, dude, really? Like, that's really annoying. Number 2, not understanding the rules after X time. I completely understand if you're brand new to a tabletop role-playing game system. Yeah, okay, like, I call out to do a certain, save, and then you're like, hey, what do I add to that? And I'm like, oh, yeah, you just roll your dice, and then you add this and that. Like, that's cool when you first start out. But once you've been playing long enough and you've done it enough times, and you still don't get it, that just clearly shows that you don't care. And number 3, Spotlight Hogger. In regards to the Spotlight Hogger, the issue is we are playing a cooperative team-based game, and if you are not sharing, if you're playing an I and me game versus an us and we game, that is not good. So that's my, those are 3 of my top 3 pet peeves right there. Aku is my favorite villain from Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack. Aku is, I believe, translated to evil or demon. It's one of those 2. Let me actually take a look. In Japanese, Aku, or English to Japanese. Aku. Yeah, Aku is, I think it's evil. Aku means evil in Japanese. There you go. So very, very simple name there, but very fitting for the character. Can you explain how the Red Wizard adventures connect? I've only played a couple of AL adventures. People talking over other players. That usually is like spotlight hogging from my personal observations. Spotlight hogs tend to also, tend to do that. How the Red Wizard adventures connect? I So I haven't played through all of the Adventures League content. Many of the Adventures League content I've played is through like the older stuff, like what do you call it stuff? I did the Adventures League for Curse of Strahd, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and Tomb of Annihilation, stuff like that. But I think the real simple answer is the Red Wizards just want their hands in everything. Like, if there's an ancient artifact, the Red Wizards want it. If there's political power to be had, the Red Wizards want it. So I think it's like not a very far stretch to just say, oh, the Red Wizards are getting involved because they want power. I would have to actually take a look, but I genuinely don't know. Do you ever fudge dice? Why or why not? Okay, getting into the real questions here. So, ultimately, I used to very much so roll in private, and sometimes rolling in private meant I didn't roll at all. Sometimes that meant that I would say, oh yeah, the monster totally hits you. And sometimes I'd say, oh yeah, the monster totally misses you. I used to be that way. But ultimately, as the time went on, I realized I like when the game is a mystery to me. And the dice serve that mystery, right? The dice separate the game from being just a pure, like, I dictate everything that goes on, to hey, I present a scenario and the dice will change up that scenario. So me personally, nowadays, I roll out in the open. All my players see my rolls. They know what's going on. They know when the monster misses. They know when the monster crits. When I say, hey, the monster is looking at the wizard and the fighter, who does it attack? And I roll, and I say, oh, hey, I rolled a 1. That means it's going after the wizard. Like, no one can sit there and be like, oh, well, you were trying to, attack me on purpose. No. There's never any questions about my air quo integrity in that regard. So, I roll in the open to facilitate a mystery to both myself and to the players. Because ultimately, I don't want to sit there at a session and know exactly what's going to happen every single time, right? When I show up to a session, I don't want to know what's going to happen every single time. When I show up to a session, I want to feel as if I'm part of the game, because I am part of the game, right? Like, I'm a facilitator of the game, and thus I want to be a part of that game. I want to experience ups and downs, highs and lows, the same as my players. I'm on my player's side, but I also want to challenge them. And I truly feel as if me being purely on the sideline and not dictating the game one way or the other, simply just rolling out in the open, is the best way to be on my player's sides. Because I will absolutely root for them. I'll be like, hey, players, you got this. And then the monster goes and the monster rolls a crit. And I'm like, oof, that's too bad. The monster crits, those things happen. But they make the game that much more engaging. Oh. Never ever fudge. Always roll in the open. So there's other, like, what I'll say is I wouldn't always roll in the open. I mean, a per example of that is for like some of my old school games is I don't roll in the open all the time. For example of that being in regards of when my players go to search for secret doors. So if my players, let's say, like their character says that, oh, I find a secret door on a 2 in 6 chance. The problem is if they roll the dice or I roll the dice out in the open, then they will know for certain without a shadow of a doubt if they succeeded or failed, right? If they roll a 5 or a 6, then there'll be that nagging feeling in the back of their mind, like, oh man, like I rolled a 6, like, my character missed it, but there may be still something there. Versus if I roll it behind the screen and I roll a 6 for you, I'll tell you, yeah, you don't find anything, and then that'll tell you, like, then the player and the character are on the same page. The player and the character are on the same page in regards of, hey, we looked for it and we couldn't find it. Either we just straight up didn't find it, or there's nothing there, right? Same thing. A perfect example of that too is also stealth rolls, right? Like when you roll stealth before you're supposed to need stealth, then you'll definitely get into that metagame mindset of like, oh, I'm not stealthy. I'm not stealthy. Which is why you should never actually roll stealth until like someone would spot you. You're supposed to like, you're not supposed to roll it before and then go. You're supposed to just go, and then if something happens, you roll. But even still, I have no issue with rolling behind the screen, as it were. But I always want to adhere to the dice at hand. Oh, man. Oh, me, oh, my. It's funny, I remember a little while ago, there was a DM, he basically posted in public that he said, oh, my monsters have enough HP until I feel like my players deserve it, kind of thing. And I saw a lot of people in praise of that, and I saw a lot of people opposing that. And I thought to myself, like, I'd hate to just invalidate my players, like one player over the other, right? Because it honestly feels like you'd be playing favorites. I don't know how you could not play favorites if you just ran a system where monsters just didn't have HP until you felt like it. Because ultimately, like, someone gets the finishing blow. Ultimately, someone, like, did the person that rolled, did 30 damage, like, are they more validated than the person that only did 5 points of damage? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of weird. Are there any old school mechanics that you've included in your 5e games? Indeed. Ultimately, not many, because just the way 5e runs, it just isn't like... It wouldn't make sense for some things in regards of like... Yeah, I talked about this before, but like overland travel, if you're running a game of vanilla 5e, then, don't bother with random encounters, because I don't want to sit there and waste an hour of our game time on a combat encounter where you'll just get all your HP back. But I have, in fact, actually ran some games where it's short rest 8 hours, long rest the week. And thus, then the random encounters make perfect sense. Dungeon encounters, also, every 10 minutes you're in the dungeon, I roll a d6 on a 1, then a random encounter happens. Stuff like that. But, so I'd say the 1, random encounters on the d6. And then 2, I would say retainers. So, one of the great things about, old school play was like, you'd have a bunch of losers showing up to the table. And losers in regards to loser PCs. But you could eventually like train these guys up to not be losers. And then at the same time, you also had the retainers, which were also losers. And you could train them up to be heroes as well. But in 5e, you're a hero right off the bat. And thus, like, you don't have that kind of like rise to fame kind of thing. But the players can vicariously have that through retainers. So one thing I like to do is, like in my campaigns, is there'll be that loser that shows up to the party and says, hey gang, I want to be heroes just like you. Can you teach me? And thus they become retainers for the party, and the party trains them up. So, yeah. How do I run crits? Crits are, very vague is what I'll say, in regards of how I run crits. But in combat, just standard Roll twice. Out of combat. I don't care about crits. I just care about the score. Because ultimately, I don't care if you are a, like let's say the barbarian has a -2 intelligence and they roll a crit, meaning that they get an 18 on their arcana check, right? I don't care that you got a natural 20. Overall, your score was an 18. Versus the wizard, who has a +7 to their arcana, only rolled a 15, but guess what? That means they got a 22 in total. I respect the wizard rolling the higher arcane with a 15, or on a dice roll versus a natural 20, right? But in combat, I just want to keep it real simple. Just roll some dice. Let's get it on. You've got crits are typically not engaging in 5e in regards of there's not too many abilities that proc off of them. If there was abilities that procced off of crits, then I would absolutely, do them up more. But 5e in particular does not have many. It doesn't have anything really in regards of when you get a crit, you also do this. It's mostly just when you get a crit, you do some damage. So let's just keep the ball rolling. Illusionist DM with changing HP. The fly is changing HP 1. The fly is bad sportsmanship. I have a hard time to make chases fun. Try to adapt some Call of Cthulhu rules last game. Also, I'm fascinated about the mechanics of clocks and flashbacks in Blades in the Dark. May adapt those to our other system, really. Heck yeah. Chases in, how I always incorporate chases in 5e is it's purely just skill-based. I purposely, say, hey, gang, as you are chasing after them, then all of a sudden, a crate falls down. Everybody roll a dex save. Alrighty, gang, as you're getting closer to them, that is when, a whole bunch of people are in front of you. Roll a persuasion check to try and make your way through, kind of thing. Simple things like that. Wizards of the Coast has invested hundreds of millions, and it all rides on a shaky argument that redefines the term authorized. The irresistible force meets an irrevocable object. It's tough out there for Wizards of the Coast these days. I've read chase rules several times and still don't fully understand, nor does anyone have a video of an example of how to run one in an actual game. Maybe I'll do that. I'll write that down. Maybe I'll do a chase guide. Try Master the Dungeon channel for a video on chase rules. I think they are one of the only channels to cover it. Master the Dungeon. There's so many of my fellow D&D YouTubers. Master the Dungeon. Oh, you know what? Master the Dungeon? I stumbled upon this channel a little while ago. And mind you, when I say a little while ago, it was I stumbled upon them, I want to say maybe 5-6 months ago, and they barely had any subs. And I remember this distinctly. I stumbled across this channel, and within, I want to say 1 to 2 weeks after I found them and showed them to one of my buddies, all of a sudden their channel exploded. Because they were only getting, I want to say hundreds, if not just 1,000 or 2,000 views on all their videos. And then all of a sudden, I remember this distinctly, all of a sudden I saw them next, and their video got 40,000 in a day. So, they started popping off. And mind you, the reason for that, I think, is because a lot of people love the types of channels where people draw their own art. So, yeah, Master of the Dungeon, they've been doing pretty good pretty recently. I'll link them all for you. Are you faithful to the book adventures you run? I personally find it disheartening when a video series has more homebrew than book. It's hard to learn from if I wanted to run the adventure myself. So mind you, when I cover running the adventure modules on my videos, I cover them like pretty much rules as written, right? Like I'm not incorporating, my own, hey, buy my product on how to make this adventure better. I'm not like one of those people, right? I'm not trying to get you to buy my $5 subscription on how to make this area better and incorporate these monsters. No. But in regards of when I run them, I am not faithful. And the reason for that is because, quite simply, if my players want to show up and play that adventure 100% as the book is intended, then what is the purpose of me as the DM? They could literally get anyone in the world to run that game to run that book purely as written. My players show up to my table to play in my interpretation of that adventure. Anyone can run that adventure. Nobody can run your adventure, is what I say. Mind you, like, I still stick to, pretty close to the script, but there'll be like some obvious changes that I'll make. There'll be some, renditions. There'll be, rules changes. There'll be less loot there, more monsters here, less monsters there, sort of thing. Like I'll do my own spin on it. It won't be just like, oh, I'm running Icewind Dale, and by the way, it's just set in Icewind Dale, and I don't care about the whole oral thing, and I don't care about the whole, whatever else thing. No, like I'm gonna stick to the general outline. Yeah, I think similar things happen to me with them quality content, though. I'm upset about the whole OGL thing, but they were already losing me anyway with the direction of 1D&D, especially with the word race. Just leave it alone. It's not racist. My personal issue with 1D&D in particular is they were not going to change the rules enough for me to bother spending that much money on it. I suspect that a lot of people felt the same way about a lot of things, but in regards of specifically 1D&D, it's literally just going to be 5e, but with some changes here and there and everywhere, and it's not going to be worth my money. I know it's not. Master of the Dungeon has a good chase video, but I still don't understand it from a grid perspective. They can read the rules to me all they want. I need to see it done on a table. What I'll say is I probably just wouldn't do a chase on a table. I would do chase as purely theater of the mind. I would, instead of it being like individual tokens, I would instead have it be a token representing the monsters and a token representing the PCs, and whichever way they're running, whether the monsters are chasing the party or the party's chasing the monster. I would have it be just like a tracker of, okay, the monster is 100 feet away. Like, let's say it's a bandit. The bandit's 100 feet away. The party is here. The bandit moves 60, so now it goes to 160. And then the PCs, move, and then like basically kind of just constantly rotating the grid like on a conveyor belt. Or instead of doing that, instead of like going down to the minutia of numbers in regards of like feet and distance, you could just have it be, okay, the monster is 5 successes away, gang. Alrighty, so... Alright, gang, you get 1 success, you're closer. Oh, you get 1 setback, you're down back to 0, kind of thing. Like, you could do that. Top 5 most modified things in 5e books. 1, Dinner with Straw. 2, Destruction's Light. True. True. Grid? A grid is there for distance in a chase. It can be used for relative distance, i.e. the distance between the two parties in the chase. But it really depends on how big and scale the grid is going to be. It really depends on what are the implications of this grid, how many moving parts there are. Do you want the chase to be just a straight line? Do you want the chase to have zigzags? Do you want another great thing would be chases with branching paths. Okay, the bandit's running away with the gem. He goes down an alley. You've got 3 options. There's a sewers, there's the alleyway itself, or you could get onto the rooftop. Which one do you want to go? You can have the branching paths part of the chase. You can do stuff like that for sure. Want to say your video of the 4 tips from TOA changed my approach in the campaign, running two campaigns simultaneously, one in person, another for a work colleague on lunchtime. Heck yeah, that sounds dope. I'm actually curious what changed your approach to running the campaign. I'm genuinely curious, Tiago. I'm genuinely curious. It's funny. I distinctly remember when I came out with that video. I remember this distinctly. Like this video came out like a year and change ago, maybe even close to 2 years at this point. But I distinctly remember someone had a negative comment on that video saying, "So basically, you're just telling people you should have fun? That sounds stupid." And I replied back to them, some people forget to have fun when they're running games. Oh man. When did that video come out? It's been a while. It's been a while. Fun in my elf game? More likely than you think. In my running group, we have this I can't even remember where this meme started. But we just have this classic line of die elf. And it's funny because I feel like we haven't even had any elves in the party. But we just have this constant thing of like if a villain's gonna monologue or if they meet a new NPC for the first time or whatever it is. And even when we're running different game systems, we just always have this running theme of like, okay, so the person turns to you and says, "Die, elf." I legit don't know where that. I want to ask them if they remember where it came from, but like, we've been saying that for years now. Clearly that person forgot what channel they're on. No fun here. Exactly. The crazy thing is they couldn't make a new edition because it flopped like 4th did. Everyone would just stay with 5e. The new version just looks like 5e with house rules. Not worth buying. It is 5e with house rules. It absolutely is. Like, and mind you, there's already been several large supplements for 5e that basically just restructure it with homebrew rules. And some of those are far better in design than Wizards of the Coast is doing with 1D&D. Like, there's a supplement called Level Up D&D or Level Up 5e, and I want to from what I've seen about that one's really good. There's also all of the Ghostfire games content that restructure it. Those are pretty good too. Not having the Death Curse in the beginning was one of them, focusing on player backstories in the first session and all those many NPCs in Port Nyanzaru. Yeah. There you go. But I can see it was less risky. Yeah, it is less risky. Also, just dropped the hex crawl as in the book and thought of something better and more fun. See, here's the thing. I love hex crawls for other game systems, but not 5e because, as I just mentioned before, in 5e, it doesn't matter if I got into 2 combat encounters on this hex, because guess what? We moved to the next hex the next day, and basically nothing happened. Now, in an environment where hexes represent, the journey, and hey, we left Port Nyanzaru, we're 10 hexes away, and we get into a huge fight, and we're super damaged, we're super injured. Now we have to crawl our way back. Like that the hex crawl back to town to heal back up because we're super injured. That's scary. Like I dig that scary feel of, taking damage and losing resources and feeling that loss in resources and weighing the options of, okay, gang, we've moved this far. Can we press further? Do we go back? Do we get lost? Which hex are we on right now? I love that stuff. I absolutely love it. Hexes are so fantastic for that design. But Once again, 5e is not designed for that style of play. 5e is designed for a super epic, hardcore, awesome, mega adventure in a single day. And it's not designed for the overarching, amazing adventure of, 80 days. If they fix the light and darkness rules and add more harsh weather-related mechanics, I'll be happy. They're not going to. I promise you they're not even going to touch exploration at all whatsoever. I can absolutely promise you that. Another good tip, thank you. Yeah, fix exploration pillar. They're not going to. 5e is not designed for exploration. 5e is designed for combat. And I remember this distinctly. I remember distinctly on Twitter, someone mentioned, hey, 5e is supposed to be all about exploration, combat, and roleplay, but there's next to no rules on roleplay, and there's next to no rules on exploration. It's just mostly combat. And I remember like a D&D dev, it wasn't any of the big ones, but it was like someone working at Wizards of the Coast saying, oh, it's, exploration's there. It is not there. Exploration is terrible in 5e. Exploration is next to non-existent in 5e. It is worthless in 5e. Once again, the whole thing of, oh, hey, the overland journey, it took us, instead of taking 3 days to get to the town, it took us 2. It's like, well, does that really change anything? No. Not really. And not only that, but mind you, exploration rules only apply to like tier 1 and like low tier 2 characters, because eventually you get to a high enough level and everyone can fly, everyone can teleport, everyone can do whatever. So exploration, as minimal as it is, as small amount as it is, it only applies to 1/4 of their expected content. Now, mind you, I'm going to be making a video about this, but the whole design of levels 1 through 20 is in my opinion, a bad design, because you spend so much time thinking about the class balance and the act, and you think about all this stuff, and it is straight up just so bad, because it feels so bad to look at a class and be like, hey, look at all these features I'm never going to play. Because people aren't going to play levels 1 to 20. Exploration isn't just walking from place to place. It's about interfacing with the world. When you walk into Argynvost, you see a shadow on the wall. That's exploration. So that is exploration. But once again, there is no rules in 5e in regards to that level of exploration, right? It's not just the overland stuff, but also there's no rules in regards of like how long it takes to search something. There's no rules in regards of, the only air quote rules are, oh, hey, this spell casts 1 minute it takes 1 minute to cast, right? There isn't anything there. 5e focuses on here and now action. Exploration is the complete opposite of this. People talking about exploration don't understand that unless they're basically costed to exploration is pointless. What's a good RPG system for exploration? That would be oh my gosh. Why am I blanking on it? Well, one, I would just look at, old school D&D, like 1st and 2nd edition D&D. But secondly, a fantastic RPG system with fantastic exploration rules is, oh my gosh, Forbidden Lands. There we go. Forbidden Lands. Forbidden Lands has fantastic rules in regards of how you move about the world and the roles the party takes and actions you do and stuff like that. It's fantastic. The fact that they're even bothering to try to put mechanics in the social pillar gives me hope, I guess. It doesn't give me any hope. It just makes me think that they're going to put in as little effort as possible and say, hey, look, we did it. Oh, hey, we've got this manipulation rule. You can manipulate people now, and the DM has to allow you to manipulate people. Like, I think that's bad. Just because there's not rules doesn't mean it's not a big part of the game. So Benjamin, while I agree with the sentiment that just because something isn't in the text, it's not part of the game, it is in essence not part of the game because, well, you and me may decide to incorporate those things into our games. I promise you the majority of people who don't see something are not going to say something. You know what I'm saying? If you don't see it, you're not going to say it. If you don't read it, you're not going to play it. The majority of people Like I'm willing to bet you if you only grab someone who's ever ran 5e and say, hey, like how big is exploration your game? You know, how often do you incorporate into your rules? And then I promise you, a lot of people are going to say, I don't do that. Right? I promise you, a lot of people are not going to be. People are only going to do what's in front of them. Right? It's just human nature. Mind you, no exploration isn't a bad thing. It's just, obviously, in fact, I've actually ran for a lot of people who do not want exploration. In fact, my last paid game that I ran, they explicitly told me that they did not want to do hex crawling. They did not want to do overland large travel. They just wanted to show up to the place to do the adventure. And I said, okay, simple enough. Some people just want to show up to the adventure, have the villain monologue in front of their face, and then, click on the big shiny button that's in front of them to save the day. Some people want that. I personally don't, but I know a lot of people do. I know a lot of people do. The mechanics being player-facing also hurts. Players complain it's just 100 D20 rolls, and it probably runs a lot slower than DM rolling some dice quickly behind the screen. Every who plays the game describes environments and asks the PCs how they interact with them. I go left, I look at the tapestries, might not need any mechanics, but are core to the D&D experience. They might be core to your D&D experience. I don't think they're core to today's D&D experience. Especially now, in regards of the classic 5-room dungeon that is incorporated in the normal D&D 5e environment. The 5-room dungeon doesn't leave room for exploration in regards of you go to the room, you go forward, and you say, okay, there's this monster in this room. Okay, I fight it. Okay, I go to the next room. There's a puzzle. Alrighty. I mean, there's not even many puzzles anymore in D&D, let's be honest here. And so a lot, like, I'm willing to bet you, like, I'd have to, like, talk to, like, all these new players showing up to the hobby, but I think a lot of people don't either care about that, know about that, or maybe even want it. Thankfully, I'm blessed with a bunch of players that do, and that's cool. I like creating jaquazing dungeons where the players are actually rewarded for exploring and looking behind the tapestry. Thankfully, I got a bunch of players that love that stuff, but I don't know if that is the core D&D experience anymore. I genuinely don't know. .5e does have plenty of exploration. The rules aren't in the books. They use free content creators on YouTube to explain all that complex stuff. Exactly. True. Talk to other 5e only DMs about exploration, and the idea of dungeon turns, hex crawling, etc. had them looking at me like a crazy person. I think that's wild. I seriously doubt most people are playing D&D as a pure linear combat fest like Darkest Dungeon. No, I think what it is, Benjamin, is like from my personal perceptions of new people showing up to the hobby. Either one, it is just a combat fest like Darkest Dungeon, or two, it is a pure roleplay, like super heavy, hardcore. Hey, we're sitting there for, like we're having the same conversation with this NPC for 30 minutes, and then we go on the shopping trip, and then if there is a combat involved, it's a super narrative combat, and then we do, things like that. Also, the pure linear combat fest like Darkest Dungeon, like I just mentioned, I ran a game that was like that. I ran a game where basically the players, because the players wanted this, they wanted to show up to a location, they wanted to have the monster, do his thing, and the players, go and fight on this one little map. They go forward in this dungeon, this 5-room dungeon, no room for exploration, but a bunch of role play involved, a bunch of fighting involved, and that's the end of the story. Is TOA the exploration module we're looking for? So once again, I think TOA has some of the best exploration in regards of the 5e lineup, because if you look at, let's say, so the smaller version of like a really good exploration module will be Curse of Strahd, but in Curse of Strahd there's not too many places to explore. And then the other one would be way too open, which would be what do you call that thing? Oh my gosh, Storm King's Thunder. Storm King's Thunder is way too big, and like I think the scale is way too massive. But you're supposed to explore around the world. I think TOA just creates this awesome environment where you're encouraged to explore around, and you're encouraged to go to this place that you heard a rumor about, and you're encouraged to, once you get to this dungeon, to poke around, like, you know, buying the tapestry and things like that. TOA, in my opinion, is, once again, the greatest 5e adventure module, because it truly is an adventure. But that's just my personal opinion. Jeez Louise. Jeez Louise. You think new people that watch Critical Role would understand roleplay? Sometimes their sessions last 4 hours with nothing but roleplay and sometimes very little DM direction. That I don't know. So, like, obviously the whole, you know, Matt Mercer effect, that term gets thrown out there left, right, and center in regards of, you know, oh, as a DM, you need to come up with your own homebrew world that has a, you know, a 1,000,000-page backstory, and, oh, as players, you need to roleplay super duper hardcore. I genuinely don't know how many, like, I personally experienced it. I have had players show up to the table and, like, really, like, think that you are supposed to be sitting there role playing, you know, hardcore for 4 hours straight. I've had that. I haven't had it in mass, though. But the real issue is everyone is showing up to the table with different ideas on what the game's going to be. And ultimately, you know, the issue is I might try and run a game about, you know, the Darkest Dungeon style play, where it's all just about delving into a dungeon and getting PCs killed. And then if that person shows up that wants to do the heavy-duty roleplay, then it's not going to work out. And then vice versa. If I want to do a heavy-duty roleplay game, and then the person that wants to go trailing in the dungeon, fighting monsters and getting killed, like, they're not going to have a good time either. So I don't know, like, I genuinely don't know what how players are getting into the hobby in regards of, are they watching Critical Role, or did they see some live play on stream, or did they just get into it because of Stranger Things, or did they, you know, did a friend tell them about it? And then the very big one right there is the friend that tells you to start playing D&D. What's their game like? Is their game the classic 3 pillars of D&D? Is their game the super duper heavy roleplay? Is their game the super duper heavy dungeon delving? What's going on, right? So it's genuinely hard for me to say what new players are like, because I don't know. I get a wide gambit of players showing up. I get a wide gambit of players that, you know, just accept what the game is in regards of the table, in regards of, you know, do they want the heavy duty role play, or do they want the dungeon delving? Do they want all that fun jazz? It's hard to say. It's truly hard for me to say. I mean, I'd be curious. Numbers don't add up from what I've heard. There's a lot of more new players than the entire Crit Role fan base. Not all Crit Role fans play TTRPGs, so no Crit Role can't take all the credit. No, not at all. Like, but even still, like, whether it be like Critical Role or, once again, Stranger Things or whatever, automatically when you're showing up to the hobby, you're gonna have perceptions of what the game is gonna be about. And also, very importantly, is the very first group that you play in is going to dictate that. Because a poor example of that being is if you show up to a hobby shop, right? If you show up to the nerd shop, you show up to the nerd shop to buy your Magic the Gathering cards, and then all of a sudden you see some nerds playing D&D. Are they playing the beer and pretzels D&D? Are they playing the super duper heavy, stage acting performance D&D? Are they playing the just by the numbers, hey, this monster is killing you? That's that. What kind of D&D are they playing? They're going to have different perceptions based on that. So, it's truly hard to say. I'd be curious about what y'all have to say about that, though, in regards of how many new players are you guys seeing at your respective tables or in your respective social groups and gatherings? And, what is their perceptions of D&D? Do they think that D&D has to be done a certain way? Do they just come to accept that D&D is different for every group? I'm genuinely curious. Raid time. Catch you all some other time. Take care, NFA. Take care. Thank you, DDD. Thank you. It's funny because my family are all new players. My mom watches Critical Role religiously. When get to play, I can tell my mom is trying to role play with the rest of the family, and everyone is like, what? I have a group that is extremely casual and don't bother role-playing. They just want to hang out and bash enemies. Nothing wrong with it, but I wanted to encourage them to do more RPing. Any tips? So, they don't bother with the role-playing, but is that because they don't want to? Or is it because they, no one's taking the initiative? Because I promise you, someone's got to take the initiative, right? In regards of, you have to sit there and start doing a bunch of role play. You got to get a little monologue going with someone else, and then it'll spread. If it's willing to be spread, it'll be spread. Well, ultimately, what I would say is, if you want them to role play more, and not, mind you, role playing isn't just putting on a voice. Role playing in regards of truly acting as your character, speaking as your character, that kind of role play. I would just genuinely ask them, hey, do you guys want to incorporate more of that role play? Do you guys want to talk not as players directing their characters, but do you want to talk as your characters, kind of thing? But I would definitely start off by, leading the charge, taking the initiative in regards of, already as the merchant walks up to you, he says, well, how do you do? I am Money Pennybags at your service. Da-da-da. I heard you are fine adventures. Perhaps I could finance you on your journeys. What do you say? You gotta start. You just gotta go. You gotta delve in there. New players' perceptions, I'd bet, are formed by 1, pop culture depictions of D&D, 2, pop culture assumptions of fantasy, and 3, fantasy-specific media popular at that time. True. I think a great example of that is, people playing video games and then playing D&D for the first time. What's funny is video games can teach you a lot of bad habits in regards of playing D&D, because video games often have objective markers. Video games often have clear-cut goals. Also, something very important is video games are often fair and allow the PCs to always win, or allow the players to always win. So it's always funny when people have only played video games and then show up to the D&D and think it'll be the same, but it's not. Do you ever review or make guides for older edition mod adventures? I have not, but I kind of want to, honestly. I kind of do, because there's some fantastic old school adventures that still live up to this day. And I absolutely think that they should be well worth looked at and played and ran. I read a tip to do 1 question per player regarding something about their character. They can answer as their character or just as the player. We do it before each session as a roleplay warm-up. Yeah, I did that a while ago too, in regards of, asking, oh, hey, what is your character's biggest fear? What is your character's motivations? What does your character think about this NPC? You can ask these things. And one, it's a good way to warm up to have your player think in regards of their character. And two, it's a great way to dig up some dirt on them as well. Because if you ask these questions every single week before the start of the game, and eventually months will go down the line and they'll forget about it. But if you are astute and write all these down, then you can absolutely have some dirt on them in regards of, oh, hey, I know your character's biggest fear, so-and-so. You see a lot of stuff of where people want Witcher D&D, Dark Souls D&D are one that pop up quite a bit. Fun fact, we talked about this on the last stream, Alex, but the D&D Dark Souls book was atrocious. Oh my gosh. I tried looking it up, and I don't think you can even buy it anymore. It was so ill received. The D&D Dark Souls book was made by people that straight up didn't know 5e, and one of the classic mistakes that they made in that whole system was one of the classes starts off with a piece of equipment, and you can't even use that piece of equipment for that class. Like it's so terribly it's so terribly made. It's amazing. B4 Lost City, great adventure. B4, awesome stuff. Riddled with spelling mistakes and mechanical errors. Oh yeah, it was bad. Let me actually take a look at the all the classics here. B1 In Search of the Unknown, B2 Keep on the Borderlands, B3 Palace of the Silver Princess, B4 Lost City, B5 Horror on the Hill, B6 Veiled Society. I have not read through B7 Rahatia. I have not looked at it at all. I don't even think I've heard anything about it. What even is Rahatia? For character levels 1 to 3, huh? I have legit not looked at this at all. $5 from Overboard. Well, hello, Mr. Money Pennybags. Here's 500 pennies for the live stream. My question is, how many pennies can Mr. Money Pennybags bag carry? I promise you they can carry 500. Thank you so very much, Overboard. Thank you. I promise you could carry at least 500. That actually brings me to another thing is, in regards of carrying weight. In today's day and age, we always my character can carry, 15 times their strength modifier. But then, I was looking at running old school D&D, and when you weigh everything in coin. I really dig that. How do you feel about a DM only speaking in the third person for NPCs or never doing voices? Example being, the innkeeper lazily looks at you and asks in a low, husky voice if you're looking to stay. So, I personally want just a little bit more connectivity to the world. And I find that the less connected I am to the world, then the less I can connect to it. You know what I'm saying? And I personally, as a DM, I roleplay the bejesus out of NPCs. I, as a DM, you're meeting a character, they've got a voice, they've got a personality, they got movements, I personally do that. And I think that really helps with my players. Now, if I was being a player in a game and the DM only ever talked in the third person, they only ever said, "Oh, hey, the merchant, begs you to go on a quest." I feel as if I could just, I feel as if I could literally be reading. I could be playing a video game, is what I feel like, right? I feel like I could be playing a video game. And I'd be getting, maybe a video game would even have more emotion, you know what I'm saying? Maybe if I'm playing a video game and then the merchant pops up and the merchant says, "Oh, I was robbed, can you help me?" I would feel much more connected than if the DM said, All right, the merchant says that he was robbed by goblins and wants you to go help out. Can you do so? I just feel a little bit of a disconnect from the game. You know what I'm saying? Rahatia is about mind-controlled elves that you have to save, I think. Yeah, I started like taking a little peruse at it. Rahatia. I really like the cover of it though. The cover looks dope. Let me pull up the cover here for all you peoples, because the cover looks really cool. Look at that. That is a beautiful looking cover. It's funny always going back to the classic, you know, fonts and all that stuff. Yeah, I in the triple column, that triple column, gotta love it. Let's take a quick little peruse through here. Oh, look at that. That's scary. Oh, hey, look, cool art. Hey, look, more cool art. That's what I love about all these old school things. Oh my god, that looks awesome. Look at that, dude. Look at him. It's a 4-armed skeleton. It's a 4-armed skeleton. That looks so good. Oh my gosh, how is that so good? Look at that thing. Oh my gosh, I love this art. I've never even heard of Rahatia. Like, I mean, I heard of it, but like, man, I want to read through it now just because of all this. Oh, look at that. That's so good. This freaking white popping out. Oh, it's so great. At least I'm pretty sure it's a white. I'd have to look. No, it's just a skeleton. Go figure. Look at all. Wizard of Wine's Winery, Purple Grape Mash number 3. Look at that. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, we just stumbled across a Curse of Strahd reference. Ancient. Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. That's funny. We just stumbled across a Curse of Strahd reference right here. That is so cool. Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm Red Dragon Crush. Oh my god. What are the chances of that? Curse of Strahd. Look at that. That's so cool. Oh, that's awesome. I'm sold now on this. Oh, look at this. Look at these new monsters. Haunt, Water Weird. Wow, Water Weird being a new monster. That's crazy. New monster, Water Weird. That dates this adventure, let me tell you. That is cool. Bone Golem, the 3 Witch Sisters. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to read this adventure now. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, and look at these maps. These maps are beautiful. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to run this now. Oh, wowee. Okay, yeah, this got put up on my list of things to read here. That is really cool. Oh, this was Laura and Tracy Hickman. Cool stuff. Yeah, I've never heard anything about this adventure, which probably is a bad thing. But even still, I'm intrigued. I'm gonna have to give this a peruse. I'm gonna have to give that a peruse here. That is cool. There's a lot of charm in the old stuff, absolutely. Desert Nomad series in the Expert series is good too. Master of the Desert Nomad and the Temple of Death are fantastic and have beautiful art. Yeah, let me take a look at the other ones. Looking at the C series, we have Hidden Shrine of Tomoa-chan. Oh, great stuff. What else do we have? In the D series, we have Descent into the Depths of the Earth, The Vault of the Drow, Adventures in Blackmoor, DA1, interesting. G1, 2, and 3 being the giant stuff. Classic. I6 Ravenloft, so good. So good. Series ends with Red Arrow Black Shield, which is supposed to end with a war game scenario using the battle system war game, which is quite a climactic ending. Heck yeah, that sounds baller. That sounds baller. And like honestly, what I really like about that too is like it really feels organic when player characters like start off as these low-level chumps, and as they level up and as they get magical items and as they get gold and they get all these things, it feels so right for them to eventually become movers and shakers of the world, not through magic, but through like leading armies, right? Like it feels so natural to all of a sudden take charge of forces and create a keep and start the domain play and stuff. I love that. It's freaking great. N1 against the cult of the reptile god. Oh, way too good. Way too classic. What else? Tomb of Horrors, White Plume Mountain, Expedition to Barrier Peaks, Lost Caverns of Sajkant. The S series was slapping. Wow. The S series was going hard. Tomb of Horrors, White Plume Mountain, Expedition to Barrier Peaks, and Lost Caverns of Sajkant. Like, that is just an incredibly good lineup. I feel like almost all of these, like, lettered, or not lettered, but numbered, yeah, no, lettered lineups. I feel like all these lettered lineups, like, you have some that are great and some that, like, I kind of whatever. But, my gosh, the S series going hard there. Man, all such fantastic stuff. So good. Oh, goodness gracious sakes alive. There's so many things I want to cover. There's so many things I want to run. There's so many things I just want to do, but I just don't have enough time in the world. It sucks. I want to run all these adventures. I want to explore all these different game systems. I want to do all these things, but it just takes time. It's so annoying that it takes all this time. Let alone the money. The money's another big barrier. Money is another huge barrier. But besides all that. Besides all that phooey nonsense. Oh boy. Oh boy. Let's, did I already do my Dungeon 23 today? Did I already do it? I already did. I already did my Dungeon 23 today. Oops. I had just done the Dark Chapel on day number 22. So, my Dungeon 23 is going strong. I have, once again, for those of you that don't know, many people are drawing out their Dungeon 23s and having it be where each month is a new floor. I am not doing that. I am just simply making a new dungeon room every day. And by the end of it, I'll presumably have 365 different rooms, and I can plug those wherever the heck I feel like. And I think that'll be a lot better for me because like my creativity will ebb and flow, and I'll do various different themes, and they'll fit in different ways and all that fun jazz. I think it'll be a lot better for me than just going at it one room at a time. Have I ever created my own adventure? I absolutely have, Cloudy. I absolutely have. So let's take a look here. I have written for other people. For example, being Lunch Break Heroes. I wrote an adventure. In fact, I wrote several adventures for Lunch Break Heroes. I've written another adventure for someone else. I totally am blanking on in front of life of me. But other than that, yeah, I've created my own adventures for my own groups, and I absolutely plan on codifying those. In fact, I have an adventure I made that I'm running right now is a Mothership adventure. Mothership being a sci-fi horror adventure or sci-fi horror system, and for that one, my players are going through that adventure right now. So I'm pretty happy for them to go through it, and then I can, by the end of it, I'll have it all completely written out. But in regards to creating my own adventures, for example, being, let me pull them up here. Our OBS is so annoying, and I've only got the one. I've got the Slay the Beast adventure here, which is the the good old-fashioned French town going off to fight the terrible beast in his castle. I've got that working up right now, and then I've also got the... Let me pull this one up here. Once again, OBS is super annoying to navigate when you've only got the one monitor. And then I've also got this one. The Reverse Mega Dungeon Hex Crawl. So I've got those working up right now. Lots of great stuff I'm working on. What is the name of that TTRPG that its main gimmick is that no one can know the rules of it? That would be Paranoia. Paranoia. So the whole... What I'll say is Paranoia is really annoying. Fry minis with $2. Don't forget to make your daily bowel movement. I'll certainly hope I don't forget. Thank you, Fry minis with the $2. Going to the Chair Foundation, because as a friendly reminder, I'm still sitting on the ground like a hobo. Thank you so very much, Fry minis. Fry minis, for all y'all who don't know, Fry minis is a fellow D&D YouTuber who is making content on minis. Now, I reluctantly say D&D YouTuber because, you know, I saw him going over to the dark side there. I saw him showing off some Pathfinder minis. I saw that. Fry. Just pop in later, Gator. Later. Just showed off a link for Fry Minis there. He's you know, he's doing his minis thing. There is a cool Kickstarter starting soon. It's a cool underwater sci-fi setting. I plan on backing it. I'll let everyone know when it drops. Do you happen to know the name of it? Thanks, big guy. Thank you. Yeah, so Paranoia, Spy Clip, it's super annoying because it's one of those games where the game actually sadly gets worse the more you play it, from a player's perspective, is what I'll say. Because the whole fun of the game is players not knowing and just absolutely... You know, just letting you run the game and the players show up, and it's a great time. So don't let people in on the rules. Knowing the rules is against the rules for Paranoia. I may have blanked on Dungeon 23, but what is the idea of the challenge? The idea of the Dungeon 23 challenge is that you show up. You write a dungeon room every single day, and you're presumably supposed to draw it as well. And every single month you'll have a new level of your mega dungeon. And so presumably each mega dungeon floor is going to be, anywhere between 28 to 31 rooms. 28? Is it a leap year this year? I don't know. but presumably like each month you're going to have, a new room, or each month you're going to have a new floor, and by the end of the year you will have you'll have made a mega dungeon. And so me personally, I'm just going down the route of just making a simple room every single day, and then I'm gonna mesh them all together at the end. Couldn't you just keep changing the rules to keep it fresh? I think the beauty of Paranoia is the combination of the setting, the rules, and the player's lack of knowledge. I think those three combined are what make it so good. And unfortunately, once the players begin to know the rules and begin to know the setting, I think unfortunately a lot of the beauty is detracted from the setting, or from the system itself. The Sunken Citadel. Interesting. I'm surprised they chose the name the Sunken Citadel when it's so close to the Sunless Citadel. Sunken Citadel, a Kickstarter. Tabletop miniatures adventure game. Tabletop miniatures adventure game set in a lost underwater station, box sets, and 3D printable STL miniatures and map tiles. Here it is. So, nothing yet. I've never heard of the Antimatter Games people. Let's take a look at them. They've created 15 products, so I think they're really into the water theme, is what I think, looking at this. I think they're really into the water theme. Uncharted Realms. Okay, so... Ooh, okay. They got some Sahuagin stuff. They got some submarines. The Stygian Depths. Lost Temple of Zibalda. Okay. Rise of the Draconoids. Okay. Let's, Ooh, unfortunately, not all of their projects have been successful. They had one funding canceled. They had 2 projects unsuccessful, but, they're doing decent. They get consistently 100 to 200 backers. It's not bad. My buddy's printing a huge setup for them. He's on YouTube as well. Facility D20. Let me see who this is. Facility D20. Okay. Creating an underwater world. Sunken Citadel. Okay. Okay. Damn. He's putting up numbers. 12K subs. He just got 18,000 views on something he just did 2 days ago. He's doing pretty good. Facility D&D. Okay. Or Facility D20. Okay. He also looks like a Warhammer nerd with the Imperial Guard. I see that. I see what's up. What do you do for inspiration when writing your own adventures? I do a number of things in regards of my own inspiration. So specifically, I'll have a theme in mind, right? I'll start off with just the central theme. So, for example, being one of the ones that I made for what's his face, Lunch Break Heroes. One of the themes I had was it needed to have a hag in it. There needed to be a hag that was the central villain, and thus it needed to be fae themed in nature. So for my inspiration for that, I started like looking around and saying like, okay, you know, what could be a good way to incorporate a hag, which isn't just, oh, the hag is evil, the hag cackles maniacally, and whatever. And so ultimately, I started like looking around and thought to myself, Alice in Wonderland. And so I started looking a little bit at Alice in Wonderland stuff, and thus I made an Alice in Wonderland style adventure. Which, if you join my Discord, I run that adventure all the time. I run that adventure like all the time for like fun little one-shots that I do. And ultimately, so for that one, you know, I started looking at Alice in Wonderland stuff. And then, so like another one, for example, being the Slay the Beast one, I started looking into the good old-fashioned Beauty and the Beast. And so I started looking up a bunch of things about that. And I actually read a lot of the old stuff of Beauty and the Beast. And fun fact about the old Beauty and the Beast stuff, it actually has the Beast being a lot better of a guy. Like in the Disney movie that we all know, you know, he's not exactly the best guy around. But it's kind of funny in like the first, like in one of the first major publications of it so long ago. He's actually not a terrible dude overall. So I just started looking at a bunch of, basically I'll just start off with the central theme and then I'll take a look around, but I won't just go off and just go all willy-nilly. I'll have the central idea and then start plugging slowly and surely for it. And then for another one being my other adventure, which is you get trapped underground and you have to climb up the mega dungeon. And that one I looked at other Mega Dungeon play and basically just thought of the reverse of it in regards of, oh, hey, normally a Mega Dungeon is all about delving down to the bottom to get the loot. Now this one is delving up to the top to escape. I'm putting together some Warhammer minis right now. What faction do you play? First off, 40k or fantasy, or I guess not fantasy anymore. 40k or Sigmar. And then secondly, what faction you playing? That's the real question. Those are the hard-hitting questions. Oh, this time tomorrow I'm gonna have a tooth ripped out and be all sore and bloody and sad. Oh dear. I've been collecting for years. There's only war. I have every faction. In the 41st millennium, there is only war. I'm interested to see what Henry Cavill is going to do, because Henry Cavill is signing up to start helming some 40k big screen stuff, so that could be good times. How often do you rely on random tables for variables in D&D? Loot, monsters, attitudes, encounters, etc. versus making it up? That's a good question. So, I love random tables. So, this goes back to the whole thing of running an adventure versus running a story. When I run a prescribed story, the players, like, there is absolutely no randomness to it. Like, when I'm running the prescribed story, they are absolutely going to meet this person they're absolutely going to this place, they're absolutely doing this thing, the monster is going to react exactly this way. Versus when I'm running the adventure, it's random tables. Hey, like a per example of that being when my players get to the bottom of the dungeon and they kill the dragon, and I say, "All right, gang, now we get to roll for loot. Let's see it." And mind you, my players rolling for loot is some of the most hype content ever, because it's not just immediately me going, okay, this is exactly what you find. You find exactly this. No, it's, all right, you get to roll the D100. Okay, you roll the D8. You roll the D4. You roll the this. You roll the that. And it's so hyped because it's like, oh, are we going to roll big? Are we going to roll big? And, it's almost like they're gambling because, they're rolling big for sweet rewards, right? And it's so hype, and it's so organic because I personally, I could have either made, I could have, purposely made that loot there, or I also, very importantly, could have just rolled randomly and then said, hey, this is what I rolled randomly. But there's just something so unique, something so special about rolling on random tables and saying, hey, gang, this is all out on the open. This is all you. It's so great. I'm excited for Space Marine 2. I'm curious, though, because I really liked Space Marine 1 when it came back. Oh my gosh, Space Marine 1 came out 10 years ago at this point. No, it came out way earlier than 10 years ago, right? It came out when I was... Space Marine 1 came out in dang near 2011 or something like that. So it came out like 11 years ago or something. So, my gosh, it's it's a long time coming. He's English, so it's Henry Cavill, not Henry Cavill. Cavill, huh? It's funny. Now you got me questioning. I've never heard him say his own name, I don't think. Henry. You know what? Actually, no, that's actually not true. I've definitely heard it. Henry Cavill. I've definitely heard Henry Cavill. It's just we filthy Americans to say Cavill. Cavill. Henry Cavill. Is there somewhere to find the tables you use? I mean, it depends on, one, the game system, two, whatever environment they're in, right? Like, if it is, if I'm running 5e, for example, then I'll just use the Dungeon Master's Guide for the loot. And if it's for a specific dungeon, then it'll be like, oh, hey, here's the dungeon random encounter tables. So, yeah, it entirely depends on what game system, depends on the environment, depends on which ones you're looking for. Forgive me, it's not important at all. No, I mean, it's good. Like, if someone's got a name, you don't want to be saying their name wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're Jesse Parker, I assume. You don't want people saying that you're Jesse, right? You don't want people saying Jesse or Parker, right? You want people saying how your name is said. You know what I'm saying? Oh, goodness gracious, people. Goodness gracious. Oh. Tomatoes. Tomatoes. It's funny because what's really funny about that instance in particular, Cloudy, is if you, like, we only get that because we get that, but if you show that to someone, like, who doesn't get that, they'll just read tomatoes, or they'll read tomatoes, right? Like, it's so funny how the combination of the verbal and the written language you can read as read, or you can read red as red. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so funny how that works. Oh, goodness gracious. I say, I say tomatoes. I say tomatoes. Exactly. What separates good home brew from bad? Uh, Enjoyment. Here's the thing, right? You could have homebrew which is busted, right? You could have homebrew class where you get a plus 10 to attack when you activate your special kitsune ability, or you could have infinite flight with the power of belief or whatever. And for some tables, that's going to be god awful. But for other tables, that's going to be awesome. Ultimately, what separates good homebrew from bad isn't balance, because even from Wizards of the Coast, own production, they have not produced balanced content. So ultimately, what ultimately separates good homebrew from bad is just table enjoyment. You can have a table where having the plus 10 to your attack rolls is perfectly fine, and that's just part of the fun of the game. And you have infinite flight with the power of belief, and that's fine. But then other tables are going to be like, oh, that's terrible. That makes the game way unfun for me. So there is no one answer to just looking at a homebrew and saying it's good or bad, because even looking at Wizards of the Coast own produced content, it's not all balanced. Which, funnily enough, leads into the whole thing of, back in the day, it was perfectly a norm when you were running old school gaming that you would say, hey gang, I'm going to create a new campaign, and in this campaign, we can only have these classes. Da-da-da, da-da-da, and so and so. And that was a perfectly normal routine, where you would show up to a campaign, and then there would be things that were off limits in regards to classes, right? All right, gang, in this game, that there's no gods, so there's no clerics. Okay. You just show up and you play the game. But in the 5e world, that has not been common, procedure. In the 5e world, it's been basically this thing of, if it's in the book, I can play it. And people create, a ton of characters, whether they be on D&D Beyond, which, of course, maybe many are deleted now, or off to the side or whatever. And they expect that they can bring this pre-made character to this game because it was made with the rules in mind. But some DMs now I know are standing up and saying, hey gang, I don't allow this certain subclass. Like, for example, being the good old-fashioned, there's a cleric subclass in particular, the Twilight subclass. I know there's some DMs that say, hey, no Twilight subclass, no this kind of fighter, no this kind of rogue, no this kind of whatever. And I think that should be like more mainstream and have a return. I think more DMs need to absolutely stand up and say, hey gang, I don't want this on my table because I'm trying to portray this kind of story, this kind of world. And this class gets in the way. This race gets in the way. This spell gets in the way of that. Spells in particular. There's a lot of spells that need to be removed if you want to try and sell a certain kind of world. I've bought unofficial decks, but haven't tried them yet. Curious Treasure, Fumble, Searches, Treacherous Traps, and the Fates of Fortunes. They look pretty fun. That sounds dope. I once again, I also contributed to what's his face? Lunch Break Heroes. He did a deck of like scary things, and I wrote a bunch of those for him. How familiar are you with 2nd edition Ravenloft Adventures? Ran or played any standouts? I don't think 2nd edition has. I don't think. Oh, 2nd edition Ravenloft. Oh yeah. Yeah, I've ran several. Let me take a look here. I have looked at. Oh my gosh. I looked at Shri Raji. What's the Sri Raji one? It's got a name. I'm finding it right now. Oh my gosh, what is the Sri Raji name or adventure? Where I'm trying to find it right now. Where the frick is it? It's got a name. It's not through the looking glass. It's Spider's Web. It's in the Spider's Web, I believe. Let me see if I can find it. But what I will tell you is, when it comes to the second edition Ravenloft adventures, there's a lot of bangers, a lot. Let me sift through them now. I sadly don't own them all. I own a bunch of them because like they had like some sort of like mega whatever sale, and I own a bunch of them, but I don't own them all. But there's a lot of good ones. I know that Feast of Goblins is a fantastic one. I know that When Black Roses Bloom is a fantastic one. The Evil Eye, The Awakening. Oh, there's a fantastic like level 1 like as soon as you show up. Night of the is it Night of the Living Dead? It's something. There's like it's not Night of the Living Dead. It's like, oh gosh, let me see if I can find it. Not Night Star Terror. Night of the Walking Dead. Night of the Walking Dead's really good. Chris Estrad. There you go, yeah. I'm going to be rolling up a character soon for Call of Cthulhu. Any fun suggestions? Not looking for a cheat code, just never played before, and this may be my only time. Never know. So what I'll say is, 1, don't min-max. So 1, don't min-max, but 2, don't make a jack of all trades. So ultimately what makes a good composition for a party of investigators is to have, like, basically, like, a few people that are good at a few things. Like, so don't just pump all of your stats into like one thing and you're like really good at that one thing. Be like pretty competent at a few things. So for example, you might have a driver who you might have a driver who is good at speaking and is good at running and is good at a few other things. And then you might have someone who is let's pull up a Call of Cthulhu character sheet here. Call of Cthulhu character sheet. Gosh darn, I just wanted to get that. Not open link, I want to open image. Oh, that freaking quality's dookie. That quality's terrible. Call of Cthulhu character sheet. Come on. Come on, let me see something good here. Screw it, there we go. Perfect. Alrighty, so for example, is like looking at this, you might have someone who, you might want to have someone who's like really good at anthropology and archaeology. You might want to have someone that's like good at fast talk and disguise. You might want to have someone that's good at like law, library use. Library use is a very big one in Call of Cthulhu if you're running a standard adventure, but I don't know what kind of game that you're running, so I've got no, or playing it at, so I got no clue. Spot hidden's always a classic one. Stealth, swim, throw, track. You basically what I'll say is don't pump all your stats into one thing. Pump your stats into like 5 things to be like semi decent at, and then just have everyone kind of like, kind of cover everyone's weaknesses. And what I'll say is, once again, I don't know who your DM is, or in this case, the keeper of arcane lore. But if it is gonna be a shooty McShooty game, then get some shooting, because if you're not good at shooting, you're like really bad at shooting. Night of the Walking Dead, absolutely. That being said, like, what I'll say is Call of Cthulhu is not supposed to be a like hardcore combat, like you're getting into combat every left, right, and center. That's not the kind of game it is. But some people, when they start running it for the first time, they like transitioning from 5e, they may think that it is, but it's not. Basically, just how the system works, it works in a way where you aren't necessarily punished for getting into combat, but you will die, and you can consider that a punishment in and of itself. So the classic go-to example is, on average, your investigator is only going to have 12 hit points on average, and a 1911 pistol does a D10 plus 2 damage. So there's a 1 in 10 chance if someone shoots you with a 1911 just once, you're dead. And also, very importantly, is on average 2 shots and you're dead. So, it is very much so not a game where you're supposed to be getting into shootouts all the time. Like, even punches are pretty, big deal, because, like, let's say you punch someone, you do a D3 plus, your DB, which, depending on how strong you are as a character, and that's going to be way different. But even still, it's kind of a big deal. This guy's ran a bunch, so I don't think it's a shooty McShooty. That's good. If it's a classic investigation, then only having one person who's good at shooting is perfectly fine. If that, One of the great things too about Call of Cthulhu is this Call of Cthulhu? Yeah, that was Call of Cthulhu. One of the most fantastic things about Call of Cthulhu is, unlike D&D, which D&D basically over the past 50 years, there's been like the 7 or 8 different editions, and they all are just vastly different. Call of Cthulhu is yes on its 7th edition, but the only thing that's changed is the numbers have jumped a little bit, and they've added a few stats here and there and everywhere. But what's great about that is you can grab all of the old edition stuff, like all of the old modules and all that fun jazz, and literally with a simple calculator, you can run any adventure. And that's the only thing you need to convert, is like when you see a number, you basically just multiply it by a certain amount, and then boom, you've got the monster. And if you see a stat there and they don't have it, then you're like, oh, then because they have these other stats, then this stat would be this. And that right there is so fantastic, because Call of Cthulhu has been out for like since the late 70s. Call of Cthulhu's been out for a really long time. So there is a ton of awesome adventures that have been made for it. So there's a ton of content for it. And thus, as a keeper of the arcane lore, or keeper, you can absolutely just grab a bunch of content for it and run a bunch of games. It's fantastic. Oh boy. Oh, goodness gracious. Can you give a brief summary of what Call of Cthulhu is like? A brief summary of what Call of Cthulhu is like is you are an average, everyday nobody who is thrust into a terrible situation and has to use your wits, your luck, your charm, and your grit to try and stave off the horrors of the world. What I really love about Call of Cthulhu as a system is it really trains the players and the keeper, in a sense, to facilitate a roleplay heavy game where you do anything and your everything in your means to try and come out the other end. And you know, like for example, that is like combat. At some point in one of your investigations, you're gonna have to get into a fight. There's no question about it. Fight is gonna happen at some way, somehow. Someone's gonna initiate a fight. There's gonna be a monster that's guarding the door. There's gonna be something, and you got to do it, right? But beyond that, you are not going to say, "Hey, there's the cult. Let's start shooting at him." It's gonna be like, wait, hold on a sec. Let's think about this. How about instead of going in there guns blazing, how about we, do something else here? How about we, what happens if we call the cops? What happens if we, interrupt their ritual? What happens if, so and so. It gets you thinking a lot more, which is good, because I think when the immediately go-to answer is just, I shoot them, you create a stale environment. Thanks for the help. Not sure what the party is right now. Missed the session 0. I know we have a pirate or something. He said he's good at navigating. Pirate. So, mind you, one of the cool things about Call of Cthulhu as well is, while the most famous setting for Call of Cthulhu is the 1920s, because everyone loves the Roaring Twenties and Tommy guns and the lack of technology, Call of Cthulhu can be run in any time period ever. There are people that run Call of Cthulhu in Roman times. There's people that run Call of Cthulhu in, the Roman times. When I said Roman times, there's people that run Call of Cthulhu in Victorian England. There's people that run Call of Cthulhu in modern. People run Call of Cthulhu in all sorts of different time areas. And if there's a pirate, that's making me suspect that it's set in some sort of weird, not weird, but maybe it's like Caribbean, which I could totally get behind. A Call of Cthulhu set in the Caribbean would actually be really cool now that I think about it. Going up against eldritch monsters and the ships and firing your cannons and, cursed doubloons and stuff like that. That actually sounds pretty cool. I might have to give that a whirl. Or I guess piracy is piracy is always modern, I guess. Like there's pirates today, but whenever anyone says pirates, you always think of the 1700s. So yeah, there's a lot of great ways you can run Call of Cthulhu there. And I never even thought of associating Call of Cthulhu with the Caribbean, but I'm certainly mine now. Certainly sounds like a great idea to me. Not only that, but also it works really great too. Now I'm really thinking about it, because when you're running it in the 1920s, you typically have the group be basically oh hey, I'm like the actor, or I'm the private eye, or I'm the janitor, or whatever, right? But what would really help out with that is if you're all part of a crew, and if you're all part of a pirate ship's crew, then you could have oh, I'm the navigator, oh, I'm a cannoneer, I'm a boatswain, I'm the person that hoists the sails, right? You can have a lot of great times with that. I know he was maybe a veteran captain, maybe. It wasn't pirate. I know he was on a ship in his previous life. Okay. Stranger Things is more Call of Cthulhu than D&D. True. Very true. Call of Cthulhu, yeah, it's very much so. Yeah, because I mean, like, there's no. I mean, I hesitate to use the word magic because they have mind powers, which is essentially like magic, but it's not like D&D magic, of course, but Call of Cthulhu definitely has like magic, kind of like that, where it's like, oh, I can use my brain now, kind of thing. It's funny. I see a lot of people too. Whenever they're talking about Call of Cthulhu, they always like it to be set in a non-technology heavy time. Like, so they always like the 20s and lower. But something to consider about when you're running Call of Cthulhu in a modern environment, especially like post cell phones, that just means that you have a bunch of characters that are reliant on technology, and then the bad things happen, and then technology's taken away, and then you basically have a bunch of characters that are just dead in the water. Because imagine if you take away people's cell phones today, right? Like, people would freak out. People would be like, "What do we do?" And they'd be lost. So I think that could even be more unsettling if you have it set in the modern time. Or even if it's not just like the technology being taken away, but it also could be like the technology being used against them, right? There's a lot of great things you can do with that. Alrighty, so I have been going for. Let's see. I started at 2:30. It is now 4:55. So I'll go for another 5 minutes. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, gripes, moans, or complaints, feel free to speak them now. Psionics, yeah, psionics. But typically psionics are in addition to the magic versus just the psionics, right? Yeah, so I'll hop off in 5 minutes, give my voice some time to rest, and contemplate my tooth getting pulled out tomorrow. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh, I can't wait. It sucks too because I can't eat or drink anything 8 hours in prior, which means I'm gonna wake up and I'm just gonna have to sit there and suffer because my appointment's like later in the afternoon. So it's just like, ugh, what a shame. No eating or drinking anything. We had no fun today. Thank you very much. Thank you, Overboard. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, goodness gracious. Sakes alive. As I said earlier, all the third-party groups should create an interchange data system for VTTs and content. I that requires so much like finesse, though. I don't know if they could do it. Looking forward to seeing your Tomb of Annihilation series that is definitely being thought about and happening soon. Absolutely. You'll be fine with the tooth thing. Thank you. Yeah, the TOA using old school essentials, just the classic, hey, you've got the fighter, you've got the magic user, and you've got the elf in the party. That'll be so fun. That'll be that'll be just so great. Just kicking it old school, delving into dungeons, getting XP based off of the gold you acquired. Like, that's gonna be so great. Oh man, oh man. Do you stream live games? I've never caught one before. I have not streamed live games. I don't know if I will. I would potentially live stream games with a core group of my compatriots. I don't know if I would want to risk running live games for a group of random people in case, anyone does anything that's a little bit, that could rock the boat, as it were. But I definitely do plan on recording my games and uploading them. I do plan on doing that. Yay, TOA, you made it happen for me. I did use the AL Adventures for the first few levels. Heck yeah. All the classic, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of the name of the, not Trouble in the City. It's, is it Peril in the City? I think that's the name of it. All that fun jazz. There's some good stuff in there for sure. Oh, is it Peril in the City? I cannot for the life of me remember. Let me see if I have them. Tomb of Annihilation. A City on the Edge. That's the name of it. A City on the Edge. I just found it. A Day at the Races. A Walk in the Park. Whispers in the Dark. Fester and Burn. Putting the Dead to Rest. A whole bunch of great stuff right there. Alrighty. Well, that is going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to my amazing patrons. Thank you to the donos. I got 3 donos today. That's heck of baller. That means I get to stay out of the gutter for one more day. That's pretty good for me. And I'm like I said, I'm going to be pushing out some content once my tooth gets all healed up. And more importantly, I'm going to be running a bunch of one-shots for the community. So I'll be making a video about that, and I'll be posting up in my Discord about it. So feel free to check all those out. I'm going to have all the extra details later on. But that is going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. And I cannot wait to see you all in the next one. See ya!